Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year. This is my end of year video. So thank you to all of you who've subscribed, who've liked, who've commented on any videos this year. I've only started the channel relatively recently, so trust me, I really appreciate all the support. It's been absolutely awesome and I can't wait for 2023, which includes a Rugby World Cup in France. It's going to be awesome. So this video, I'm looking back at 2022. It's my end of year awards, if you like. Got a few different things to go for. Game of the year, team of the year, moment of the year, underachievers of the year, and then also I'll finish ahead by looking ahead to 2023. Let's set a little target for this video. Let's be ambitious. Let's see if I can get my subscribers up to 1,500 to end 2022. So if you are new here, if you haven't subscribed already, I would massively appreciate that if you could subscribe, like the video, but most importantly, as always on this channel, I like to hear from you. Drop a comment down below. What do you make of the award winners I've selected? I'm sure plenty of people will think I've got it wrong. So if so, do let me know who you think should win these various categories. All right, let's get into it. So do you know what? This was tough, I thought. I was racking my brains going back through all the different games we've seen this year, the different moments, that sort of thing. I think it's been a great year for rugby, genuinely has. It's never the easiest landscape for the sport to navigate. Look at it domestically in England. We've seen 2 clubs go into administration and into the championship. But generally speaking, I think the game is in a good place. Let's just hope it can continue to grow. So the first category, the first award for me for the end of 2022 is the Game of the Year. Loads of different ones I could have chose here. We saw some absolute crackers. We saw some famous wins for Georgia against Wales, for Italy against Australia in the autumn most recently. We saw that absolutely bonkers game in the Rugby Championship in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium between Australia and New Zealand, where the Wallabies basically had the game won and then had that penalty or free kick which was overturned right at the end. New Zealand then scored. I mean, that was absolute chaos, unbelievable. But for me, there was probably only one winner here, really, in terms of the Game of the Year. And that was the Women's World Cup final. The Black Ferns beating England. England on a 30-game winning streak. Overwhelming favourites, but it was on New Zealand's soil at Eden Park. It was a phenomenal game. England had a red card really, really early. New Zealand then got back into the game. England kept coming. It was to and fro, and England had a line out 5 metres from the try line. Final play of the game. If they win that line out, they pretty much win the World Cup because their driving maul had been unstoppable in the game. But the Black Ferns were able to turn over the ball, kick it out and win the World Cup on home soil. A year on from a point where they'd barely played because of COVID. They got absolutely battered on their Northern tour when they played England and various other nations. England took them to the cleaners, but a year on, they were winning the World Cup on home soil. I thought it was phenomenal. And I just think, given the fact that it's a World Cup final, what's on the line in that game and how good it was, that's why for me it has to be Game of the Year, because at the end of it was the biggest prize in the sport. It delivered in terms of drama, it delivered in terms of storyline. And listen, I'm English, so from an English perspective, having come into it, having won 30 test matches in a row, let's appreciate that for a moment, by the way, for the Red Roses. But having come into it with that, to then lose out, it was absolutely gutting. But you know what? The scenes there in New Zealand, what it would have meant for those players and for those New Zealand players, it was just phenomenal. So Game of the Year has to go to the Black Ferns win, I think, in that Rugby World Cup final. On to Team of the Year, the second award. This was also a tough one. So I've gone for France here, the French men's team, because they've gone the whole year unbeaten and they've done a Six Nations Grand Slam. And I think the question really here is, what people will throw at me is Ireland. And the question here is, does Ireland's victory in a test series away to New Zealand trump the fact that France have gone unbeaten and done the Grand Slam in the Six Nations? And I think there'll be plenty of people that will say it does, actually. I think they will say that is such a momentous achievement for Ireland that it is therefore, even though they have lost games in the calendar year, it's better than what France achieved. But I personally just struggle to look past the French. I struggle to look past the fact they've gone unbeaten. They've won all their matches. You look at it, they won a Six Nations Grand Slam, which was the first time in a long, long time. We saw them beat Australia and South Africa in the most recent autumn as well. They have come up against good sides, and on a consistent basis, they have found the answers to beat them. They've set themselves up as probably the favourites for the World Cup. I know Ireland are the #1 ranked team in the world, so there is a bit of a conversation to be had there. But for me, it had to be France. I think had the England women's team won that World Cup final, then they would have been the team of the year. But I think the fact that they didn't win it, the fact that France have gone unbeaten, they did the Six Nations Grand Slam, for me it's a relatively straightforward conversation that France deserve this award. As I say, the question is how much priority do you give the fact that Ireland beat New Zealand away from home in a 3-match test series? That is the thing that would maybe sway people towards deciding Ireland in this category. Fascinated to hear from you on that one. Drop a comment down below. Okay, moment of the year. Now this is one which is probably... I'm backing my winner, but I think it probably is also a fact that I watch a lot more of the Gallagher Premiership than anything else. Being an England rugby fan, being a Premiership fan, for why I've gone for Freddie Burns' drop goal to win the Premiership final for Leicester Tigers. I think that's some of my own biases, but also an absolutely phenomenal moment, that one at Twickenham. You've got to remember, Leicester Tigers, whilst they are the Manchester United, if you like, of English rugby, and that they dominated it for so long, they were always in the playoffs, they were always in finals, they were always winning silverware. They had a 2 or 3 year period where, frankly, they were awful. Frankly, they should have been relegated if the Premiership hadn't suspended relegation, or if Saracens hadn't been docked all the points for breaching the salary cap. They were terrible. So to come back from there in a really short space of time, to get themselves back into a Premiership final, and then Freddie Burns is a guy who is as nice a person in English rugby as you will meet, I think. Because I work in the media and I have opportunities to interview players, he is as personable and as engaging an interview as you will get. He just seems like a really good bloke. And he'd had an up and down career, hadn't he? Came into the England side quite young in his career, hasn't ever really been able to establish himself as a full-time international, a regular international. Had bounced around clubs, he got sent to Bath, he then left Bath and had this period in Japan, came back to Leicester and ends up kicking the drop goal to win it. And I thought Nick Mullins' commentary, I think it was on BT Sport in the UK, was phenomenal for that. It's the greatest moment of Freddie Burns' life. That was an awesome moment. But I do appreciate it's because I'm an English rugby fan. It's because I watch a lot of the Premiership. I've probably gone for that. So do let me know in the comments what would be your moment of the year. All right, next up, just 2 more awards left. Well, 1 award really, and then we'll look ahead to 2023. Underachievers of the year. This is an interesting one. I think there are a lot of people that would say England. But actually, if you think about England, they've won a test series away to Australia again. That's only the 2nd time they've done that. And they were pretty poor the year before this as well. I don't think they've necessarily dropped off drastically from where they were a year ago. I just think they continue to be pretty poor. My underachievers of the year is actually Scotland. I've been disappointed in Scotland. I think we continue to be promised a new dawn and a chance where this Scottish side, this once-in-a-generation talent of Scottish players will kick on, and they just never seem to be able to. They beat England at the start of the Six Nations, and then they lost to Wales at the Principality Stadium. They, I think, have been pretty average realistically for quite a period of time. We've expected more from them and we just haven't been able to get it. They haven't delivered. Let's hope they change things around in 2023, but I've been pretty disappointed in Scotland, so they are my underachievers of the year. Once again though, let me know what you think down below. Let's finish off by looking ahead to 2023. That's the thing to do at the end of the year, and I have 2 things I want to mention here. First of all, I hope that the Rugby World Cup in France delivers. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. I think if you look at the fact that France and Ireland, for a lot of people, are going to be the favourites for it. 2 sides that have never won it before. You can't count out the All Blacks or the Springboks. I think they are probably also going to be up there in terms of who could win it. So I think we're going to have competition for the tournament. It's going to be in France, and anyone who's watched any games in France involving the national team recently will see the appetite for rugby there is in the country. I think it's going to be a phenomenal tournament in terms of atmosphere, in terms of the games we're going to see. I think, was it 8th of September, France, New Zealand, kicking things off at the Stade de France. I mean, how good? It doesn't get any better than that. So I think the World Cup will be brilliant. I hope it delivers. I believe it will. But also, my other hope for 2023 is I hope domestic rugby, particularly in England, because that's mainly what I cover and what I watch, but all over the world really, but particularly in England, I hope domestic rugby continues to improve and get better. It has struggled since COVID, understandably so, but I want to see it kick on. I want to see it start to grow. I want to see positive developments continue to be put in place. For this, I was actually going to say I hope the Gallagher Premiership becomes more competitive, which actually isn't probably right, because other than Saracens right at the top of the table, it's all pretty congested down below. So I think there is competition there, but I hope the domestic rugby continues to improve and get better and grow. Part of that is relegation coming back in, because right now the foot of the Gallagher Premiership is basically irrelevant. There's no danger there. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. Don't get me started on that. That's another video, maybe early 2023. I'm trying to end 2022 on a positive though. So domestic rugby continuing to grow and get better. Okay, that's it from me. Have a wonderful new year. I wish you all the very, very best for 2023. Thank you once again for your support on the channel this year. It's been absolutely awesome. And let's do it all again next year. Drop a comment down below on any of those awards. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel and also like the video. And I'll see you next year.